see that what people in the church don't understand, the other side has counterfeits. The other side has power. And what we see, and this is what drives me nuts about certain segments of Christianity, and I know I'm going to wrinkle a lot of feathers with this, but the Kundalini serpent spirit is all over some of this junk that we see on TV. This guy's an adept. And when he did it, it was like, boom! All this just light just exploded. My eyes are closed. Just exploded in my head. And I was in the universe. And I received knowledge. My third eye was open. I heard divine music. I tasted nectar. And I got the word of the universe. I had been in with the guru for 3 years. I had given everything up. I was faithful. I had meditated. I had done everything by the book. And I was the same scoundrel, the same scumbag I had always been. Nothing had changed. Nothing had changed. I just knew that after 3 years, nothing internally had changed. I was the same schmuck I'd always been. There was an occult ritual done by witches in a coven on the steps of that building. And in front of me, I see what's going on here. Now, I didn't know then what I know now. And there's a circle with a pentagram in it, a slaughtered dove with the head cut off, and candles are still burning, John. Still burning when I got there. So it wasn't done, it was done recently, probably 3 o'clock in the morning. Candles were still burning, slaughtered dove, in a pentagram, in a circle at the Malibu Vineyard. So, the supernatural world is real. There are witches, there are covens, they can do stuff. And when I told the staff on Monday morning staff meeting, they all just laughed at me. Oh, blah. And a month later, man, that was the end. That curse, look, we have more power than they do. Most of us never walk in it. And this is why 76 years later, we are finding what I believe is a debris from the crashed UFO.
L.A. Marzulli, it's great to have you here on Along the Way. Finally, we've done several interviews with Charisma News. We've done things about prophecy. We've done things about the Great Deception. We've done segments about Damascus, and I don't know. Whenever there's something strange in the news, you're the first person that I want to turn to say, what does LA have to say about this? And you quickly will say, no, that's a hoax, or there's something to this. And I've loved getting to know you, and I'm looking forward to being able to share your story with this audience here.
Well, again, thanks for having me on. It's been a great, camaraderie between the two of us. You're a skier, I'm a skier. And
I'm a rookie skier, but I'm loving it.
Yeah, but you were doing good. You sent me the video. But you and I have done a bunch of shows together, and I'm sure there's more in the future. And it's always good to hang out. Yeah. Like-minded individuals, brothers.
Yes, cool. Absolutely. So, LA, the first time that I ever heard about you was watching a clip of you on Sid Roth's It's Supernatural, and you were talking about the Nephilim, and which is something in the Bible that Genesis chapter 6 that most people just kind of, I don't understand what this is, so we just kind of skirt over it and we just kind of forget about it. But I want to hear about your journey going on the trail of the Nephilim, but how God brought you there, how God brought you from your life before, which you've told me a little bit about, where music was a big deal, and what you're doing now with the rungs of disclosure. So there's a lot that we're going to try to cover here, but there is so much going on. And I believe that you're in the right place at the right time for what God's doing in this, to bring light to this great deception that's coming. So,
it's just amazing how the Lord directs our steps without us even knowing it most of the time, Murph. And I was on the rock and roll trail in LA. I had producers, I had managers, I was in and out of studios. We had a couple of really great bands. The last band was with Bob Dunning and Norman Johnson. It was a 3-piece. I was on keys. I wrote the music, but the three of us, I mean, we played at the Troubadour, and we had a couple of people in the audience. The place was packed. We had a couple of people. There were other bands. We got a standing ovation at the end of the set. We recorded in the Fleetwood Mac room. We were all over the place, and it's like we would come right up to the line, And at the last minute, something would happen and it would blow the deal out of the water. It was and we were good. I mean, it was original music. It was a 3-piece. It was powerful. It was a really great band. And I became a Christian, and that was sort of the end of the band, even though it kind of hung on for a little bit. And I miss those guys. Every now and then I dream. I have dreams where we're going to play someplace. I mean, this is, 44 years ago. Mm-hmm. We were actually longer than that, more like 46, 47 years ago, that band was there. And every now and then I'll have these dreams where we're set up on stage and I'm going, but we haven't rehearsed. How are we going to do this in the dream? And I wake up going like, oh, how are we going to do this? It's just like, it's so funny. But I became a Christian in 1980. That's 44 years ago now. And immediately I became a worship leader. Almost 6-8 months in, I was a worship leader at a church. Had no idea what I was doing. So the head elder taught me what worship was. That's where I got it from. And that's George Wibbler. Wibbler was amazing. He was just a great guy. Just loved the Lord. But all my life I had been immersed in New Age from 13 to 30. I took a lot of psychedelic drugs to get spirit guides. I did vision quests like Carlos Castaneda. I read Blavatsky, Ouspensky, Eric von Daniken, just this whole occult world I was immersed in. Knew about the fakirs in India. I remember when the Beatles started with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, that brought in the greatest influx of occult books since the 1920s. And with that came Eastern mysticism. And it drives me bananas because, it's Christian yoga. That's an oxymoron. Ladies, sorry to burst your bubble, ladies, but if you're engaging in Christian yoga, you are opening up the Kundalini serpent. Is the Lord gracious and merciful? Yes, he is. But those positions, some of those positions like the cobra, what do you think you're doing with that? And I've gotten arguments. I mean, some of these women are just like, well, it's just, we're just stretching. Well, then just stretch. But why are you doing these positions, which are inexorably linked back to yoga in India, which are designed to open up the Kundalini serpent spirit? I'm not making this up. So I was immersed in all of that. And then I became
How did you get immersed in all this stuff? Because that's something you've been on a spiritual quest your entire life. So how did you get into that?
The main trigger for me is the death of my girlfriend at 18. So I'm 18, she's 16. We had been going out since I was 16 and she was 14. So 2 years. And I'm on LSD. I have nothing to hide. So, it's like, LA was taking LSD. Maybe this is why he's so wacky with the UFOs. It's like, calm down. That's a long time ago. But I was on LSD in my bedroom at my parents' house, and I was still in high school at that time, or just finished. Actually, that's wrong. I had just graduated high school, and I was getting ready to move out of the house very shortly. But I was on LSD, and I'm reading Michelle's letters and Jennifer's letters, and these love letters back and forth, because Michelle was, my girlfriend from 16, but Jennifer was in my high school class. And so there was a connection there. And I had the Bible open, reading the book of Revelation, had no idea what I was reading, but I was doing that. And I said, if there's a God, choose which one I should be with. And the God of the world, i.e. the dragon, Satan, answered that prayer because I wasn't born again. And about 2 hours later, I'm still higher than a kite. My dad comes into the room. Michelle's been killed in an automobile accident. It was a hit and run. She was walking on the side of a road, dark, late at night, and she was hit by the car and broke her neck on the windshield, and that was it. She died instantly at 16. I went to her gravesite probably roughly, I don't know, maybe 40 years later. Yeah, about 40 years later. I had to call her sister because I had forgotten where it was. And I realized, my gosh, she was 16. My own daughters are older than that. I mean, Michelle's life was taken. So when she died, that snapped me out of everything. It was like, well, wait a minute, what's going on here? Life is fragile. what is the meaning of all this? What's the purpose of all this? That set me on the quest at 18, really on the quest. I had been reading all these books and everything else, but that was the trigger that set me, if there is a God, where is he? And I was heavily involved in Eastern mysticism with gurus and the fakirs, because frankly, and I'm not trying to bag on the Catholic Church here, but I guess I'm bagging on the Catholic Church. There was just no connection at all to Jesus. There was a ceremony, and when I was a kid, it was in Latin, which made it even just like, what am I doing here? Ecum spiritu tuo. It's just like, what? I had no idea what I was looking at. So I went off in the ozone to Eastern mysticism, and there was this 14-year-old guru. Somebody had plastered the pictures on all over, everywhere outside of the Philadelphia area. So I lived near Valley Forge, the cradle of American liberty, and it said the God of the universe is here, in the persona of a 14-year-old boy, Guru Maharaji. And so I went down. I took my friend John, and we went down, and John and I sat, and we listened. We waited for about an hour and a half, 2 hours before the guru finally showed up. And this guy just yacked and yacked and yacked for probably 2 hours in this little sing-song India voice. Don't you know this knowledge is going to be very, very precious to you? What are you doing with your mind? You cannot turn off your mind. Your mind is the enemy. When you receive this knowledge, it will set you free. And it was just, I'm like, wow, a real guru. I mean, by this time I'm like 21. And the next day, John didn't come with me, but I went by myself. And I received knowledge. There was a room full of hippies in the ashram in Philadelphia. And I received knowledge. My third eye was open. I heard divine music. I tasted nectar. And I got the word of the universe, the primordial word of the universe and all this. I mean, it's just...
All right.
Yeah,
I gotta ask about you said, the third eye thing. You were deep into the new age. There it is. So
we're having way too much fun.
I know. That's fine. That's fine. I love it. But so you heard music, you tasted nectar, and you had your third eye opened. What does that actually mean?
Well, when the third eye was open, the Mahatma came around. This is after like 6 or 7 hours of being brainwashed from another Indian guy. You're probably asking yourself, oh, my boy, what is the purpose of this knowledge? This knowledge will set you free from your mind and all this kind of crazy stuff. They call it satsang, which means truth-telling. But in reality, it never deals with the sin nature, but I'm getting way ahead of myself.
Right. Yeah.
So he comes around, and he goes like this. He takes your hand, he places it over your eyes, and he opens your third eye. This guy's an adept. And when he did it, it was like, boom! All this just light just exploded. My eyes are closed. Just exploded in my head. And I was in the universe. I was in the body, out of the body, I don't know. But I was out. And, people were on the floor just out. There were probably about 50, 60, 100 of us, I don't remember, packed in this one room. And the same thing with the nectar. All of a sudden, I started hearing music. And I took my fingers out of my ears and went, no music. Put them back in. There was the music. The nectar, you put your tongue behind the uvula. I could never do that. And you would taste this nectar. What people in the church don't understand, the other side has counterfeits. The other side has power. And what we see, and this is what drives me nuts about certain segments of Christianity, and I know I'm going to wrinkle a lot of feathers with this, but the Kundalini serpent spirit is all over some of this junk that we see on TV. Some of these guys, and there's a video which is just I have it tagged someplace, and it shows what's happening at a Christian revival meeting, and then it cuts to a guru doing exactly the same thing. There's no difference because they're both working, in my opinion, with the Kundalini serpent spirit. Do I believe in the gifts of the spirit? Absolutely. Does the Lord speak to me? Absolutely. Does the Lord reprimand me? I just came through a very heavy reprimand. Yes, he does. Ow. But thank God he does. Otherwise, we would all perish. Those who he loves, he chastises. Just got chastised. Thank you. I guess he loved me, right? I mean, how does that work? And I immediately, like 2 weeks later, not even, I went home. And it was the first time in my life where I felt whole. I mean, I really felt complete and whole for the first time in my life. I instantly became a vegetarian. I started to go down to the ashram. 2 weeks later, I had moved into the ashram. Gave all away whatever money I had, and I worked for the guru. I mean, I was in the ashram. I would get up at 5 a.m. I would sing devotionals. I would meditate an hour in the morning and an hour at night, sometimes longer. And I did this for a period of time. And then the guru's brother was having an orchestra in England, and they were looking for a synthesizer player. So I went up to New York City to another ashram, and the place was packed. There had to be a couple hundred people there. And I just said, I need money to go over to buy a synthesizer and get a plane ticket over. And I played 3 songs on the guitar that I had written, and everyone was dancing, and money came in. And the guy at the ashram didn't want to give me the money first. But I said, look, this, they gave it to me, not to you. He wanted it for the ashram. It was a lot of money back then. This is like, 1973, 72, something like that, 72, 73. And, it was probably like $3,000 that I had raised. That's a lot of money back then. And I bought a synthesizer, didn't know how to use it, never played it. I was a keyboardist, but never played synthesizer. So I was a crash, and I flew to London. And the next night, I'm in the orchestra's band. And after that, the guru's band, 56-piece orchestra. And for me, I started immediately writing and arranging for the orchestra. And I did that for a number of years. And I wrote some of the top charts that we did. Quincy Jones, I'm not making this up, Quincy Jones, Ray Brown, and Alice Coltrane came to one of our rehearsals in Malibu. We were living at the old Camp Joan Meyer. It's been sold. It's big, huge mansions there now. But Camp Joan Meyer was a camp for crippled kids. And we had rented it for about 6 or 8 months. And the orchestra was there, huge room. And we would rehearse like every single night. That's what we did. So I was being funded. I wasn't working. All I was doing was writing and arranging for the orchestra. And so we heard about the guru's brother Bolaji was telling us that Quincy Jones, Ray Brown, and Alice Coltrane were going to show up. So make a long story short, to cut to the chase, they weren't going to play any of my songs for whatever reason. And so Quincy Jones and Alice Coltrane and Ray Brown just kind of sat there, just being polite at the end of the numbers. Finally, the leader of the orchestra, Bolaji, he goes, play Big Word, which was this instrumental jazz piece that I had written. So we did. All of a sudden, they stand up and they start clapping like this. So we did 3 of my songs back to back. They were all sort of jazz fusion stuff, very complicated stuff. I mean, not 4 chords. Like one was an 11/8. That's the bass line. And the trumpets come in. I mean, it was really a cool song. Really just a cool song, really upbeat, and it's an 11/8, not something you can tap your foot to, but it was what I was doing. And
do you still have recordings of that?
There's no recordings of it. All my recordings got burned up in the fire. Yeah, I know.
We're going to have to talk about that too then.
Yes,
yeah.
I know. It's unbelievable. During the course of this, there was an event before we had moved out to Malibu. We were in Houston, Texas, waiting for the millennium. That's what they called it. Millennium 74, where the Houston Astrodome was going to physically separate from the planet and take us all off world because the apocalypse were going to. I called my parents and said, you need to come down here. It's the end of the world. They thought I was completely crazy. But that's what we believed with the guru. So, there was a huge rehearsal hall for the orchestra. And one night around 2:30 in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, I got up. I went into the hall, and there was a dais with a chair with candles burning, a picture of the guru on the back of the chair, and fresh flowers. They always had a place ready in case the guru showed up. He never showed up. But I lay myself prostrate. Yeah, prostate is the gland. Prostrate is the position. I lay myself prostrate on the floor, in front of the picture, and I wept bitterly. I don't think I've ever wept like that except that one time. I mean, it was visceral. It was gut wrenching. And the reason why I wept, I had been in with the guru for 3 years. I had given everything up. I was faithful. I had meditated. I had done everything by the book. And I was the same scoundrel, the same scumbag I had always been. Nothing had changed. Nothing had changed. Now, we look back at that. I couldn't say my sin nature, but that's what it was. My sin nature was the same and I wasn't forgetting J. Vernon McGee. May God richly bless you, my beloved. So the sin nature was there. I didn't know what it was at the time, but I would die in my sins. I didn't even know that. I just knew that after 3 years, nothing internally had changed. I was the same schmuck I'd always been, always. And that's why I wept. And then shortly after that, we were out to Malibu, and that's when the cracks began to happen. And I said, you wake up in India, and your dad's some big highfalutin guru, and then you're told you're God, and then you got all these people bowing in front of you, and your life, you live like a king, and all this other stuff. Well, I'm not buying this anymore, and I left with, I think I had $35, no car, no motorcycle, and a few tools. And this is where the Lord began to step in. And it would be another 7 years, basically, before I would come to the Lord.
Wow. And, what actually led you to come to the Lord then, if it took 7 years? Because it sounds like that was a low point, which most of the times in stories where people are sharing their testimonies, it's like all of a sudden you realize that, okay, this is not good. I'm going to turn around and you meet Jesus. But it took 7 more years.
Yeah.
What was happening there, and how did you get to there?
Chasing the rock and roll carrot, multiple bands. I was in and out of studios, signed producers, managers, and all that stuff. And that's where we were really chasing the carrot. I mean, heavily involved in trying to get a record deal. And I became.
And I got to tell you. Yeah. I got to tell you, the song that you sent me that you wrote about the October 6th attack, right. I was blown away by that. And that was just something that you're known for your trail, the Nephilim. I didn't know that you were a musician to the degree that you are until I heard that. And so I thank you for that. I'm going to make sure to put a link to that YouTube channel in there as well.
Yeah. Music is I'm getting way ahead, but the Lord changed my ministry and music took a back seat.
Yeah.
And I didn't even, if you had told me 44 years ago that this is what I'd be doing, John, I would have run out of the room screaming. I mean,
Yeah.
But that's why with our lives, the way he takes us and moves us, he knows what he invented in me, what he created in me, more so than I know myself. And that didn't manifest till years later. I mean, I didn't really start this until my 40s, really, is when I read the book by Dr. I.D.E. Thomas, The Omega Conspiracy, and that opened up everything. But I was an agnostic from after I left the guru until, 1980, when I finally came across the line. And I was searching. I was looking in books, and someone gave me a Taylor Caldwell book, Great Lion of God. And the other one is on Luke and Paul and all this other stuff. And I started reading it. And then the one that really pushed me over the line was Dave Hunt's book, Kingdom of the Cults, the Cult Explosion, Dave Hunt. And at the end of, I was going, yep, I've looked into that. Yeah, I was there. Yes, I understand this. Yeah. I mean, I knew the whole book really before even reading it, because I had looked into all these different things that Dave Hunt did, the cult explosions. And at the end, there's a little prayer. And I said the little prayer. I said, Jesus, if you're really real, come into my life. I don't know whether you are real or not. I have no idea. But if you are, come into my life and change it. And about a month later, all hell broke loose. I woke up crying bitterly from a dream. I was living with a woman out of wedlock, of course. We all were back then. They're still doing it today. Nothing's new under the sun. And within 2 weeks, she was gone. She just left. She couldn't deal with what was going on. And it was a very, very intense time. My first mentor was Wayne Kendall, who passed away a number of years ago. And Wayne helped me through really the darkest days of my life. That and Pastor Fred Nicholas over at Calvary Chapel, Thousand Oaks. Those two men mentored me. Wayne was 20 years my senior. Pastor Fred was about 30 years my senior. So it was, and I would meet with Fred twice a week, and Wayne and I worked together every day. So, I was Wayne used to say, LA, that's the way he used to talk. LA, the Lord's got you just like this. He's got you in the palm of your hand, of his hands. Palm of his hands, LA. He'd go, very good, Marzulli, things like that. So he's up there cracking up when I do the Wayne imitation. But, he brought me through the darkest days of my life, some of the darkest days of my life.
So what were you doing for work at that point? Because if the band construction.
Yeah, you can't make money in Los Angeles as a rock and roll band. There's like one on every corner. So I was doing construction, and eventually I got my contractor's license, and then opened up a cabinet shop. This was after I was a Christian. And, I had no idea. What I'm doing now was not even a twinkle in my eye at this point. It wasn't. No idea. I never thought I could speak in front of people. I never wanted to speak in front of people. I had no desire to do any of this. I was a musician. I was a worship leader. So I was leading worship at different churches. And that's when I started to go back into the music. And I wrote the He Is Risen, which is a full-blown cantata with choral elements and world-class soloists. That's on the website also. I mean, there's some pretty great music in there, and some of the soloists are just amazing. I mean, if I hear Charity Chapman, that was her maiden name. No, that's her. No, Charity Chapman. That's her marriage name. If I hear Charity sing, "Who has believed our report?" from Isaiah, "Who has believed our report, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed?" It's just like, I'll start bawling because she just nails it. She just totally nails it. And behind her is just this soft string ensemble. I played all the parts on the synthesizer and recorded all the tracks. And we performed He Is Risen all over the Southland. Usually the standing room only. We would do 2 or 3 performances. Words would get out. Nothing ever happened. Right? I mean, at the Malibu Vineyard, before it was completely blew up, it was one of the worst church. At the Malibu Vineyard, when I was a worship leader there, music director there was an occult ritual done by witches in a coven on the steps of that building. I was the first person there in the morning. Now the janitor was already inside, but he came in from another entrance. So I would walk. There was a portico over the walkway, and I get out of my car. I'm the first guy there because I'm the music director. I turn on the lights, turn on the air conditioning, get the sound system up, get the music up. I mean, check the mics. I do all that before the band gets there. And I'm walking down this pathway, it's covered by the roof, and in front of me I see what's going on here. Now I didn't know then what I know now. And there's a circle with a pentagram in it, a slaughtered dove with the head cut off, and candles are still burning, John. Still burning when I got there. So it wasn't done, it was done recently, probably 3:00 in the morning. Candles were still burning, slaughtered dove in a pentagram in a circle at the Malibu Vineyard. I went to a pastor, I won't tell you who it was, recently in Malibu and told him that story. And he was all, "Are you trying to tell me there's witches in Malibu?" Going on, "That's exactly what I'm trying to tell you." 3 months later, not even, that church underwent one of the worst splits I'd ever seen. They lost a building, which at that time was worth about $8 million. When it was, now it's worth like 22 or 25 million. State-of-the-art building, unbelievable building. Now City Hall bought it. The city of Malibu bought the building. There you go. So, the supernatural world is real. There are witches, there are covens, they can do stuff. And when I told the staff on Monday morning staff meeting, they all just laughed at me. Oh, blah. And a month later, man, that was the end. That curse, look, we have more power than they do, but most of us never walk in it. Most of us never walk in it. So, I mean, that's like, and then from there, it was like I had already written the book Nephilim and working on the second and the third book. And all of a sudden, speaking opportunities began to happen.
Okay, so you were leading worship, but you'd already written a book about the Nephilim.
Yeah, it was published by Zondervan.
Okay. Tell me about this, because this is a topic, as I did it kind of in the intro, people don't talk about. They don't understand it. It's not something that you might read it in the Bible and you just kind of glance over it. If you look in a little commentary thing, it's going to be really it's going to be really milquetoast in its description there too. But tell me about your coming to the understanding of what the Nephilim are.
All because of Dr. I.D.E. Thomas's book, which I read way back in 1980. That sets the stage for everything. And once I got that, I was off to the races and then began to research. And I remember going to Dr. Thomas because Dr. Thomas, in that, he quotes the Book of Enoch a lot. And one of the head leader is Semyaza, who appears in the Book of Enoch. He's the watcher angel in charge of the 200 watchers which descend on Mount Hermon. By the way, in our On the Trail of a Nephilim tour, we were slated to go to Mount Hermon, and I was going to read the translation from Doug Hamp, the newer translation. Basically, it's Tubal, it's the whole thing. And so they go down there and they do all that stuff. And the ringleader is Semyaza. And so from the New Age, before I was a Christian, there was a book, and it was called UFO Contact from the Pleiades by Edward Billy Mayer. And I had got that book in 1975 or 6 when it was published, 4 years before I became a Christian. And in that book, the Pleiadian cosmonaut, which it's not, it's a fallen angel masquerading as such. Thank you very much. But, that's a 3-hour discussion for another time. But the name of that Pleiadian cosmonaut was Semyaza. I'll never forget when I showed Dr. I.D.E. Thomas his book, then the Book of Enoch mentioning Semyaza, and then the punchline. Here's UFO Contact from the Pleiades. Here's Semyaza. He went like this. He just dropped the books in his lap, and his jaw dropped. And I don't know. Was I the first person to link that? Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. How does that work?
These reactions on for those of you that are watching on the video, you just saw this fireworks explosion happen behind LA. So.
Yeah, I mean, I somehow I'm doing this stuff with my hands and stuff happens. Yeah, people go, "This is how you turn it off." I'm going, I'm not sure I want to turn it off. It was like right on cue. It was unbelievable. Am I the first person to connect that? Maybe, because in when was this? This is 1990. There's no internet that we know of. In order to get the Book of Enoch, I had to go to the Christian bookstore and order it there. That took 3 weeks. There's no Amazon. You get Prime delivery, you'll have it in 24 hours. No, it was like 3 weeks to get the Book of Enoch. And reading that and Dr. Thomas's book in my library, I already had the UFO Contact from the Pleiades by Edward Billy Mayer, who, that's completely deception. That's part of the Great Deception. And so am I the first person to link that? Maybe. I'm not saying I am. There's no way to prove it. But how many people read the Book of Enoch and UFO Contact from the Pleiades and connected? It's a very, very small number out of the billions of people, 4 billion people or 3 billion people on the planet at that time. Very small number. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, and so it's really interesting how what we're going to be talking about in basically from this point on is the Great Deception and all the different ways that the Lord has helped you understand ways that the deception will come about or might come about. And these conversations that you and I have had in the past talking about this has been super fascinating. Oh, and we've got a coin here with the green alien heads on there. The Roswell, New Mexico thing. We're definitely got to get there. So, yeah, LA, you've got so many props behind you. I love the elongated head. You've got the Shroud of Turin there as well. The newspapers. You got so much. You got so much stuff there. It looks very eclectic, but they all mean something very. They all connect.
Yeah, they do.
So let's talk about some of these connections that have come together on your quest.
Okay. Like for what, for instance?
You made these connections with these books. Okay. And so this was pre-internet, this was pre-Google and all these things. So
absolutely.
Then it led you to actually write a book, and then speaking engagements opened up. Right. So what did you write about? Because you almost revere IDE Thomas in a good way. And so why did you feel like you needed to write a book on that?
Well, there was at this particular moment in time, the whole UFO thing is being literally controlled for the most part by New Agers. There's a couple of people, Bill Alner, I think his name was. He passed away a number of years ago. Chuck Missler wrote a book, and that was with I can't think of the co-author, but Brad Myers did most of the research for that book. Brad Myers was very crucial in that book, and I remember I had read. Oh my gosh, what's his name? This President Darkness, Peretti.
Frank Peretti. Yeah.
Frank Peretti. So I'm reading Peretti's book and I'm going, this is great. I want to write a book. And so I started an outline, and next thing you know, I had 3 chapters and I sent them off to Zondervan. And at first Zondervan passed, and then a friend of mine, Bill Myers, called up the head acquisitions editor and said, you need to take another look at this. So Bill was really instrumental to, bridge that. It's not what you know, it's who you know sometimes. And Bill definitely bridged that gap. And so I'm on the phone with the head acquisitions editor, and one thing leads to another, and I got the deal. So I write the book. It takes me 6 months to write it. And I would get up at 3 a.m. and go down to my gazebo, which burnt in the fire. And I had the heater and the lights all set on timers. Blink. So I'd walk down there with my coffee cup, and nice and warm, in the wintertime, and all was good. And I would type away, and I got a 17-page letter back from the head acquisitions editor with all these corrections. And of course, I was immediately depressed for 3 days, and it took me, I think, 9 months to do the edits and do the rewriting on the book. And it's still, looking back at it now, that was published in 99. I was writing it in 98. So could I do it better? Oh yeah. I mean, that's the thing, but that was the first. And then I had a manager and an agent rather, and she got me the book 2 and book 3. So it became a Nephilim trilogy. The second book by far is the best. My heart and soul's in that book. And I already had one behind me. The third book, I'm not making any money here, so I rushed it. It's still a really cool book, but I rushed it through. But the second book has got 3 different plot lines, and they all connect at the very end. And I remember when I got there, I couldn't write for a week because everybody's there. Now what do I do? It's like all these characters are all there at this one spot, one scene, and it was like character overload. It was
I'm guessing kind of like the Avengers right at the end there, where everybody's there and you've got a big battle scene going on.
Now what? Who says what? And how's this all going to work? So at this moment in time, I was asked to speak at a couple of churches, and I had never done that before. And the first place I ever spoke was the Malibu Vineyard at an evening service, and I'll never forget this as long as I live. A friend of mine, Gary. I was done my talk. People really enjoyed it. And as I'm walking out, Gary comes over to me and goes, "That's your gifting. That's who you are." And I wanted to punch him. Because no, I'm a musician. I'm the music director here. I'm going to have a Christian record deal soon. What's wrong with you? And that turned out he was absolutely 100% right. Gary moves in the gifts, definitely in the prophetic. He and his wife, Karen, they have a gift of healing. They conduct a lot of healings, and the Lord shows up, not in all cases, but in many cases.
Yeah. So you've written this book, you're now speaking, and everything changes at the church. And now you're speaking a lot more. Tell me about some of those doors that opened up and how you continued down this trail.
Well, the doors really opened up. I was asked to leave the last church I was a music leader at, which was the best thing that ever happened to me. It was dressed up in clothes that whatever. It's like he said, she said, who cares? But what happened was I was talking about UFOs there a lot. And I think that upset people a lot. And it was time for the Lord to go. It's just like Joseph and his brother, right? It's almost the same deal. So I get canned at this church. Now what do? I fall back into music. I wrote sound paintings, which took about 6 months to write, and nothing ever happened with it. I mean, it was flatline. And there's some really cool music in there too. I played all the instruments and did all the vocals. I'll send you that. We used one of the songs for the Watchers film at the end of the credits, riding in a night car. And we're doing this music. I have no idea what I'm supposed to do, blah, blah, blah. So I start a blog. And all of a sudden we're getting, people that are on the blog. And I'm starting to get a few speaking things, but not a lot. And then Politics, Prophecy, and the Supernatural was the next book that was written. I keep threatening to do a reprint of it, and I need to. But the only reason why I haven't, it needs to be updated. That was 2015 that thing came out. No, before that. Yeah, way before that. It's like maybe 2007. Sorry.
Oh, wow.
2007 that came out. Tom Horn published it. And which was another fiasco because he never really did anything with it. Tom's no longer here, but it was a fledgling publishing company. Since that book, he's created, Defender Publishing, and authors do really well with him. But I was like the first book he had published, basically. And so, with all due respect to Tom and the publishing company they had back then, there was no marketing plan really for it. So yeah, we sold a few, but it didn't do really any good. But from Politics, Prophecy, and the Supernatural, that's where the blog came, Politics, Prophecy, and the Supernatural, and the news magazine. And things began to open up with that book. And that's when I started to speak at different places. People were really interested. So the book, thank you, Tom, even though it didn't do what either of us wanted it to do, it opened doors and allowed, me to go to the next step. And even then there was like a reluctance of, to leave something that I loved, the music. And then Richard Shaw and I got together. That birthed the Watchers series. The rest is history after that. That's 30 films ago.
30 films. So let's talk about the Watchers, because I mean, those are a lot of what you take is kind of stemmed, or at least has roots back into the Book of Enoch, which is something that I didn't know much about. I knew it kind of existed. It was something that's not biblical, but it's like parabiblical in a lot of ways. Yeah, it talks about the antediluvian world, the world before the flood, and a lot of things that are in there. I've delved into it a little bit now, but there's things that you can't take it as scripture, but at the same time, there's a lot of things you can learn from it. Sure. So tell me about these Watchers, because I know they're a key point in that, and that you turned into the Watchers films.
Well, the Watchers, the title is really a double entendre because, excuse me, we're watching, but we're also talking about the Watchers. So it's got a dual meaning to it. And, Rick and I, the story behind what birthed the film series was I was on Coast to Coast talking about Politics, Prophecy, and the Supernatural. Rick had heard me on Coast to Coast with George Norrie. So he shoots me an email. Hi, I'm Richard Shaw. I'm a filmmaker in Hollywood, and I'd like to get together for lunch. Sure. So we meet at a restaurant. We have a wonderful lunch together. We strike up a friendship. I come in and I look at his studio. He films me in front of a green screen. We're walking around, and we just struck up a friendship. And a couple of months later, a friend of mine said, there's a casting call looking for people that just like you that have written books or about UFOs or the paranormal. Why don't you go down? So I went down to the first initial meeting. I handed my 4 books to them. That's what I had written at that time. They were very impressed with the 4 books, and I got a return call to come in and film. Mm-hmm. And so I was there. There were magicians. There were guys from UFO hunters. There were actresses. There were psychics. And then there's me. At that time, no one had written anything. There were magicians and psychics and actresses. And so they were, I'll never forget this, they were trying to see if they could find people to mesh. This is how these things are created.
Oh, yeah.
They're just, so they were looking for chemistry between people. So they would have different combinations of people. There were about 10 of us, different combinations to see if there was any chemistry. So there was a guy, a woman in the middle, and me. And they're filming all this to see, and I'll never forget. So they said, these are like hypothetical stories, and they want us to weigh in from our area of expertise. Mm-hmm. And the story that they said was, there was a man who invented a typewriter, and he didn't get a patent on it, and somebody else beat him to it. And so he burned his house down and shot himself and killed himself while the house was burning down. Then years later, someone else built a house, and there were spirits in the house. So the guy in the end starts talking about ghosts and spirits. The actress in the middle she blathers something. I'm just kind of going like, seriously? And then they get to yours truly, and you could hear a pin drop because I started off. I said, well, what happened was, first of all, the guy committed suicide. There's blood on the land. There's a blood curse on the land that's never been dealt with. So that blood curse that's on the land creates an open gateway, a portal for a demonic realm. So what we're seeing is not the dead typewriters. What we're seeing is a demonic entity impersonating him. Everybody's like this. I mean, no one had ever heard anything like that before. And I'm there like all day, no money. And about a month later, they didn't make the show. They didn't get funding for it. So I walk out of that meeting. This is how the whole Watchers thing happened. I walk out, get in the car. I call Richard and I start yelling. I go, you can't believe it. These people know nothing about anything. They're making film. This whole thing's a stinking joke. I can't believe it. Let's make our own film. Richard goes, okay, great. How much money do we have? We don't have any money. He goes, okay. And that's how we started watching. Rick borrowed a camera. Rick borrowed a camera from a friend and borrowed a laptop. I'm making this up. And we did the first Watchers series. And Rick, he's no longer with us. Lord took him home a couple of years back. Rick was the consummate filmmaker. He taught me everything I know about filmmaking, everything. Now I have a new business partner, Gil Zimmerman, and Gil is, worked 30 years at Disney and DreamWorks. So Gil, he's the real deal. What's he doing with us? What's he doing? I look at him and go, what are you doing with me? But he quit Disney because of all the nonsense going on.
Right.
And he wanted to be in Christian ministry. So Gil and I have done, I think, 5 films together now, all in the UFO series, and there's more on the way. There's 2 more in the can, which we haven't even edited yet, but I digress. So Rick and I, we do the first Watchers film. We go and we get, I think we had 100 DVDs created. And now at this time, I don't have a vlog, no video. It's just a blog. So I blog, I put the thing up. They sell out in 24 hours.
Oh, my goodness. What year is this?
This is 2000. I have to ask Peggy. 2007, 8?
Okay.
9? Peggy would know. Maybe 9, maybe 10. It's in that window. I'm really bad with years and dates. It's definitely before 2012. So it's either 9 or 10. And so we go down and we make 200 more. They sell out in 24 hours. Finally, we make like 500. They sell out in a couple of days. And people are going, where's the sequel? Is this a series? And Rick and I are off to the races. And we did 10 films together. We parted because we had a difference where we wanted to go. Rick was filming the Ark of the Covenant. I was filming On the Trail of a Nephilim. So, but we used to get together before the fire and even after the fire once a week for lunch.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the night he passed away on the operating table, he called me up and said, I'm not doing well. I've got something wrong with my heart. I'm going into the emergency room. And 5 hours later, he was dead. So,
Wow.
we did 10 films together. And then after that were the Fatima films, the two. And then On the Trail of a Nephilim, there are now 8 there. And now 8 with the UFO series. And 2 more are basically 9 and 10. What is the truth? They're basically done. We're going to release them probably the end of March, maybe into April, because Roswell was the one that, we're really trying to push through. So, because it's really an important film, the Roswell film, in my opinion.
They both are. Roswell 1 and 2 are really important. And I'm glad that you let me see those. And it's fascinating what you guys have been able to uncover, and where the doors that open for you are pretty remarkable.
Yeah, Gil,
for sure.
Gil looks at me sometimes like, how did we get in here? I just start laughing. It's like, it's just the Lord opens the doors. I mean, that's what he does. Yeah.
So let's talk about Roswell, because this is something that you've been very excited about. And you've got the DVDs right there, Roswell Part 1 and Part 2. Now, for everybody, you've probably heard of Roswell, New Mexico, and what happened there. It's famous because the people in Roswell, they even celebrate it. They dress up as aliens. They have all kinds of stuff, because that's where in 1947 there was a crash landing. And so, LA, tell us about your involvement with that. Oh, is that an actual newspaper or a reprint?
It's a reprint, but it's a great reprint.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that are going on, and we want to talk about how, yes, there are beings, but they are not what the media, they are not what the movies want people to think.
No.
And so let's dive into this, brother. Let's go down this rabbit hole, because this is a fun discussion, because it explains a lot of oddities in the world that just don't kind of add up. And whenever you and I talk about this, it's like, oh, that explains why this is the way that it is. And honestly, whenever I asked the question to you earlier, from a previous interview, I had no idea that you had done so much research about Fatima, but something that you said made me kind of put those dots together. And all of a sudden I asked this question about, oh, is that what happened at Fatima in 1917? And all of a sudden you were like, well, I've done several films on that. And it's like, you've done all this research, but you're just kind of the guy that has the answers for all the oddities in life right now. So
I'm not sure I'm going to take that mantle. Thank you very much. But I appreciate the kudos, but yeah. And I just want to make it really clear. Anything that I am or have become is because of the Lord. It's all his direction. It's his grace. It's his mercy. It's his insight. It's him opening the doors. It's Jesus giving me words of knowledge at night at 3 o'clock in the morning, trying to write it down. What was that again? And I mean, the glory is his. What cracks me up, going back to Wayne Kendall, my first mentor, Wayne used to say, "LA, it's like playing catch with a baseball. The Lord will throw you the baseball, but you got to throw it back to him. You can't hold on to the ball, because if you hold on to the ball, then you're not playing catch anymore. Throw the ball back, and then he'll throw it back to you." It's just a really bad imitation of Wayne Kendall. But anyway, sounds more like George W. Bush and somebody else. But I mean, that's the way it works. I mean, that's the way it works.
Yeah. So let's jump into the Roswell thing, because those films are very interesting. And you've talked a lot about abductions and how, well, before we get into the Roswell thing, let's talk about what people consider aliens really are. If you can kind of summarize that as we lead into Roswell.
Several years ago, and I just want you to hear my heart. I don't I don't like disparaging people. I don't like
Right.
putting people down because they don't have the same worldview I do or whatever. We don't do that here. But a few years ago, there was a film on the whole UFO phenomena, and Rick and I gave it, 2 thumbs up. But we also felt like it was very disingenuous. And they had talked about Roswell at the end of the film and insisted that it was just a weather balloon. And I mean, I was really taken aback by that. I had read many of the books and materials on it. I had also, by that time, interviewed Dr. Jesse Marcel Jr. About his connection with his father and Roswell. So I was on the other side of the aisle completely. And, we agree to disagree, and we can be, amicable about it. I wanted to do Roswell, and I really didn't. We had no title for it at first, and it was Gil Zimmerman, my business partner. Gil did all the cinematography on it. We both edited together, and we both directed it. So we're kind of sharing all the titles because we're tied at the hip, so to speak, on these films. And so Gil came up with the title Roswell Revisited, and after watching it, one of the rough cuts, I say in the film, well, I would hope that this would exonerate, your grandfather and your father. And that's why we call the film Exoneration. The light bulb just went off, and I said, the film is Roswell Revisited Exoneration. So for years now, we've heard all these different stories from all these different venues and different people. Stanton Friedman was the one that really broke it up. Thank you, Stanton, for doing that. There were other people that have written about it. I mean, there's a lot of great books out there. And I've read most of them. Most of them are in my library. So, Kevin Randall's stuff. I mean, there's just some great, really, boots on the ground, great journalism in some of these books. But one thing we did is we went to the debris field. But before we went to the debris field, we went up to Montana and we interviewed one of Dr. Jesse Marcel Jr.'s best friend, Dr. Richard O'Connor. Marcel Jr. was a surgeon. Richard O'Connor, Dr. O'Connor, was an anesthesiologist. So there's a camaraderie there. They're talking. And, one thing leads to another. Dr. Richard O'Connor started the Jesse Marcel Jr. Museum up there. And I was privileged to not only to interview him there along with Linda Marcel, Jesse Marcel Jr.'s widow, but I also spoke there to just a handful of people. Some of them were very anti-biblical, shall we say. But that's okay. We got through it, trying to tell us that the Giants are actually good. So, but I digress. So we interviewed people, Jim and Carolyn Rankin, who were end-of-life caretakers for Colonel Hill. Hill was OSS, which is the forerunner of the CIA, OSS in the Second World War. And at the Roswell crash in 1947, Hill is called to Roswell, and he tries to interrogate or make communication with one of the bodies that are apparently still alive. How do we know this? Because he told Jim and Carolyn a month before he died. But I digress. 1947. July 1947, the 509th Bombing Group is quartered in Roswell, New Mexico. The 509th Bombing Group is the only nuclear-capable bombing group on the planet. That's it. They were the guys responsible for Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So there's this big base in Roswell, and Jesse Marcel Sr. is the intelligence officer of the 509th Bombing Group. He's trained. He's a real smart guy, and he knows what's out there. That's part of his training. He knows what the Russians have, the Chicom's have. He knows everything. He's constantly briefed with new material. He knows what the Nazis have, all that. He's up to date and everything. Sometime in early July, there's an electrical storm. And I will read it to you because this is unbelievable. Mr. and Mrs. Dan Wilmot apparently were the only persons in Roswell who have seen what they thought was a flying disc. They were sitting on their porch at 105 South Penn last Wednesday night at about 10 minutes before 10 o'clock when a large glowing object zoomed out of the sky from the southeast. going in a northwesterly direction at a high rate of speed. Wilmot called Mrs. Wilmot's attention to it, and both ran down into the yard to watch it. It was in sight less than a minute, perhaps 40 to 50 seconds, Wilmot estimated. Wilmot said that it appeared to him to be about 1,500 feet high and going really fast. He estimated between 400 and 500 miles per hour. In appearance, it looked oval in shape, like where we heard this before, two saucers placed mouth to mouth, or like old-type wash bowls placed together in the same fashion. Something like that. Actually, I have a much better prop over there, but I'll get to it. The entire body glowed as though light were showing through from inside, though not like it would be if light were merely underneath. From where he stood, Wilmot said that the object looked to be about 5 feet in size, and making allowance for the distance from town, he figured that it must have been about 15 or 20 feet in diameter, though this was just a guess. Wilmot said that he heard no sound, but that Mrs. Wilmot said she heard a swishing sound for a very short time. The object came into view from the southeast and disappeared over the treetops in the general vicinity of 6 Mile Hill. Wilmot, who was one of the most respected and reliable citizens in town, kept the story to himself, hoping that someone else would come out and tell about having seen one. But finally today decided that he would go ahead and tell about seeing it. The announcement that the RAAF was in possession of one of the discs came only a few minutes after he decided to release the details of what he had seen. So that's an eyewitness account, but there are other eyewitnesses. There are many eyewitnesses. But then one of the key factors is Jesse Marcel Sr. Marcel, circling back to Marcel, he's the 509th Bombing Group's intelligence officer. So Mac Brazel's ranch, he's a cattle rancher. He's leasing the ranch, and he's out there raising his cattle, and grazing his cattle, I should say. And he goes out and he sees this wreckage in the field, and he's never seen anything like it. But he's concerned because he thinks it might be some military thing. He doesn't know what he's looking at. He takes some of the wreckage, puts it in a cardboard box, drives into town. In 47, that's about a 3-hour drive, roughly, because of, the cars aren't going that fast. The roads aren't accessible. It's about 3 hours. There are no highways. That time it's just a 2-lane road in Roswell. And, some of it's dirt. Some of it, the cattle stuff is still dirt and gravel. So he gets into Roswell. He goes to the sheriff, shows the sheriff, and goes, "You better take this over to Jesse Marcel, to the military, to Roswell, the 509th. So he does. And Marcel sees it. He's never seen anything like it. Seen anything like it at all. So the two of them go out together to the debris field, what's known now as the debris field. And Marcel says on the record that it was out in the middle of nowhere. If directions, forget about it. You're never going to get there. Mac Brazel, took Jesse Marcel Sr. out there. So that, they had 2 cars and out they went. And Marcel Sr. collects a bunch of it, drives it back to Roswell. But before he goes back to the base, he stops by his house and he shows it to his son, Jesse Jr., who's 11 years old at the time, and his wife. And he says on the record to his family, "Look, take a close look at this, because you may never see anything like this again. This is from some kind of a craft from another world." And that opens up the whole can of worms, because the next day, General Ramey says, "Excitement not justified."
It's a cover-up.
Cover-up.
Yep.
So this story is the one about RAF, flying saucer captured. That's July 8th. This is July 9th, which is the retraction. Tim Alberino, I asked him, "Tim, what are your thoughts on Roswell?" He said on film, it's in the film. Tim goes, "They had it right the first time, and then they did this double switch, and they lied to us." So Jesse Marcel Sr. is trotted out as a patsy, as a fall guy. And General Ramey controls the whole narrative at this point. And we have a clip that we show in the film where Marcel Sr. goes, he's actually in the debris field. And probably I'm going to guess one of the last times he was ever in the debris field. And he says, they wanted me to speak in the microphones, but that's not what I did. And he talks about the records. He said it was all over the foil that would look like it was as thin as a foil a pack of cigarettes, but you couldn't bend it. You couldn't break it. You couldn't dent it with a sledgehammer. And he looks at the camera and he goes, they did a switch on me and they brought me out to a press conference, but that's not what I did. That's not what I was trained for. So Ramey took the reins and nothing to see here. It's just a weather balloon. And then Marcel Sr. looks right at the camera and he goes, but we both knew differently. And then you've got Colonel Hout, who was part of the whole thing. He wrote an affidavit, which you can go online. We published it in the book, the film rather. We show it in the film. Basically, deathbed confession to be read at the time of his death. So he's not breaking any laws. He basically said that in the aftermath of the first day, there was a group of men, Ramey, Haught, Blanchard, Colonel Blanchard, Marcel, and others around a table, passing the wreckage around, each looking at it going, don't know what this is, no idea. There was another film that came out with a very well-known researcher. And again, we don't disparage anybody. I vehemently disagree with his position that this was some sort of a secret Nazi craft. I don't believe that for a second. This was from a craft from another world. It wasn't the Nazi bell, which I believe the Nazis launched, or we launched, and came down in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. That's not what this was. The acorn-shaped Nazi bell. This is something different. And this was, the late David Flynn wrote a paper on it, where the whole events of 1947 in Roswell. We have to remember that this is right before this. You got World War II, you got the nuclear stuff going off in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and you've got the world wondering, what's going on here, what's really happening. And just a few weeks before Roswell, you got Kenneth Arnold, a pilot in Mount Rainier, Washington, seeing, a group of UFOs flying in formation. And that's where the term flying saucer came from, because they looked like, two saucers. Oh, I got one right here. Hold on. Oh, another prop. They look like this, like two saucers. It's exactly what they look like. Whoosh. And so Marcel and Wilmot, flying saucer. That's why he says it in the Roswell record, the Roswell Daily Record. So Marcel's a patsy. The whole thing is dressed up as a weather balloon, and off we go to the races. So in the second film, The Debris Field, which is right here, right? Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
So, we've done a lot of due diligence with Roswell exonerated, because we bring in Colonel Hill, who was flown to Roswell. If it's a weather balloon, why is Colonel Hill being flown to Roswell? Why is he getting off of his chest a month before he dies? And on it goes. Why does Colonel Haught write in an affidavit only to be opened up after his death that they were passing around this wreckage? It's not a weather balloon, folks. It's not. This was the cover story that they went with. The reason why they went with it was, in our opinion, was because War of the Worlds. They figured that the American public was not ready for this. They didn't know what they were looking at.
Yeah. And what year was that? The War of the Worlds, H.G. Wells, that radio?
39.
So that was still in relatively recent memory. For
Very
people.
much so. People panicked.
Right.
People totally panicked. Freaked out. Totally freaked out. So they put the kibosh on the thing, and I think it was a deliberate crash. The late David Flynn also believed that. Now, whether it was deliberate or not is really not germane to the discussion. The point is, it's there, 1947. So we go out to the debris field. Chuck Sikowski, who's a ufologist, and Frank Kimbler, who's another ufologist, and we start looking with metal detectors in the debris field. And to give you an idea where this is, you drive for an hour on a 4-lane road at 70 miles an hour or whatever. I think the speed limit's 80, but whatever. But you're driving this thing, and You make a left turn. Now you're on a 2-lane road, and you're driving for 35, 40 minutes on that, and you're in cattle country. There's nothing around. I mean, there's just nothing around at all. And after 40 minutes, you make a left turn, and now you're on a real cattle road. It's just gravel, and there's free range cattle. It's like cow, other cow, group of cows crossing the road. Stop the car, and that you're on that for a good 35 minutes. Then Frank Kimbler, who knew the way, you stop at a gate, a cattle gate, and Frank opens the cattle gate. Now we're four-wheeling, very rugged, on that for about 20 minutes. And then we park above the debris field and we walk down into the debris field. We flew the drone. Gil Zimmerman, my business partner and co-director of the film, producer of the film, co-director, co-producer of the film. We're business partners. And he flew his drone way up and got this incredible shot just to show you're out in the absolute middle of nowhere. There's nothing there. So Frank has discovered metal in the debris field before. He's gone out there about 20 different times, maybe more, to find the metal. And he's had the metal tested. So while we're talking, we pray to the Lord. We ask forgiveness of what happened there, ask that the Holy Spirit and angels would come and cleanse the land. And Father, show us what you want us to find here. You know, give us your favor. So for the month before we're there, I just love the way the Lord does this stuff. You know, hey, LA, memorize Psalm 121. Okay. Yeah. And so, you know, I look to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from you, maker of heaven and earth. Right? He will not let you fall. Your guardian will not fall asleep. The guardian of Israel will not fall asleep. Does not sleep, will not fall asleep. The Lord is your guardian. The Lord is the shade over your right hand. The sun will not beat down upon you by day, or the moon by night. The Lord guards you from every evil. The Lord guards your life. Okay, so I memorized it. I go out in the field, in a debris field, supposed to be 95 degrees that day, in the middle of nowhere. John, there is a cloud. There is a cloud over us the entire time we are there. It's on film. You can see the shadow of the cloud right over the debris field. And Frank's going like, this is the best I've ever been out here. You guys are really, yeah. And so Frank's got a metal detector. Chuck Zukowski's got a metal detector. All of a sudden, Frank Kimbler goes, hey, guys, I got a hit. It's all on film. We go running over, beep, 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 at the metal detector, takes out a little garden spade, goes like this, you know, checks it out. Sure enough, he's got the thing out. Now here's the metal detector. He takes a handful of dirt. Nope, nothing there, puts it down. Takes another handful of dirt. Nope, nothing there, puts it down. Another handful, beep, beep, beep. So now he's got it, right? Then he takes it and goes like this and splits the pile. Then he goes in front of the metal detector, nothing. And then he goes again with the other hand in front of the metal detector, and it goes beep. Now he's got it in his hand. So it goes like this, and he takes a little bit of a dirt out. Beep, still there, opens it up. He goes, oh my gosh. And there it is. And what it looks like is this.
It's just like a little piece of metal that's crumpled up like a piece of aluminum foil or something like that.
It's folded. The metal we tested the metal. Frank and Chuck tested the metal. And the metal is folded in on itself somehow. The metallurgist, where they took it to get it analyzed, it's been exposed to very high heat, and it's undergone some severe sort of trauma. Something happened to the metal. They tested it. It's an aluminum alloy that's not invented till 1953. What is that doing out in the debris field 6 inches below the surface?
Very interesting.
Very interesting.
Very interesting. Yeah.
And we say on the record in the film that isn't it interesting that this aluminum alloy created in 1953, I wonder where the source material for that came from. And that's what we all believe. So there's a scene from White Sands, White Sands test area and it shows a glowing craft coming in. I mean, this thing is just flying like this, and it hits the ground. It's all glowing. It hits the ground and bounces, and then comes up again, and then comes down. And when it hits the ground for the second time, it explodes. It just goes. It's in the film. Just goes boom, and these shards like a bullet out of a 22. So we maintain they didn't get it all. They couldn't have gotten it all. They would have had to have scraped everything with a bulldozer to get it out. And this is why 76 years later, we are finding what I believe is a debris from the crashed UFO. And I'll stick with that. I'll stick with that to my dying day.
So LA, there's a lot of people that that just think this is crazy. You know, like there's no such thing as UFOs. Well, that's not true because David Grush, who gave his eyewitness testimony of all these things before Congress, said that yes, it is real. These things are out there. Now, we as believers in Jesus Christ are looking at it as not in the science fiction Star Wars, Katina Bar on Mos Eisley's thing where all these strange creatures are there. We as Christians are looking at it as a different thing. And I know you talk a lot about the seed war and where this is coming from. Can you just shed some light onto that? And I want to get to your story and have you kind of reminisce a little bit as well. But can you just kind of explain that? Because I don't want to leave people out there like, wait a second, aliens are real? Well, there's something more to that.
Absolutely.
LA, take it away. Yeah.
2 Kings, one of my favorite scriptures in all of the Bible, because it illuminates what's going on. So you've got Elijah and his servant Gehazi, and they are surrounded by the Syrian army. They're toast. they're as good as dead. Gehazi's panicking, going like, "What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do?" And Elijah goes, "Hey, Lord, open his eyes. Open the eyes of my servant." And he shoos Gehazi out of a tent. Gehazi goes out and he's like this. He can't believe what he's seeing. Comes running back in. I saw the chariots of fire over the Syrian army. The chariots of fire, plural, not just one, it's plural. What are chariots of fire? So Gehazi has nothing in his lexicon, in his verbiage, in his language to process any of this. Nothing in his grid system. He has nothing to process it at all. So all he knows, the only vehicle that he knows is the chariot. There's no cars, there's no trains, no buses, no buggies. There's a chariot. That's what he knows. He knows fire and oil lamps, a chariot of fire. That's what he's describing. That, my friend, is a UFO, but it's piloted by the good guys. Matt Freeman, been watching all my stuff. I've spoken at his church twice, and he's a real smart guy, real great guy. And he goes, LA, I asked the Lord if the Lord would show me one. And so he's on a plane, and the Lord says, I'm going to show you one. I'm going to show you one of the good guys. So he's on the plane, and he's about 5 minutes out from landing. He still hasn't seen anything. He goes, Lord is typical, right? Lord goes, just wait, it's coming. So he's on his window seat, and he's looking out. In the distance, way, way, way in the distance, there's this light, and here's the plane, and the light comes like this, right under the wing, right underneath this window, and he's just like, wee. So all you skeptics out there, and I know a lot of you have problems with what I'm saying, so let's give some biblical background to this. So this is from a book that I'm working on, Supernatural Technology in the Bible. So Adam and Eve are kicked out of the Garden of Eden. We all know the story. So the East Gate is open, East of Eden, John Steinbeck's book, great book, by the way, Tim Shaw. But East of Eden, and there's the gate. So the Lord brings 2 cherubim down to guard the East Gate. But that immediately begs the question to curious minds, well, what happened to the North, South, and West Gate? Why aren't they being guarded? Aha. That leads us to all sorts of interesting
Right.
speculation and rabbit trails, which we won't go down to.
Maybe another time.
Another time. But the east gate is open and the cherubim are there. Cherubim are there guarding the east gate. But wait, between what a lonely post that is. Okay, how long have you been here? It's like, I mean, I don't know how any of that works, but it works. But between the cherubim is a flaming sword that turns every which way. You're laughing. You know exactly where I'm going with this.
Oh, yeah.
You know exactly where I'm going with this. So, lightsaber, anyone? You tell me. They didn't call it a lightsaber in the Bible. They just called it a flaming sword, which is a lightsaber. I mean, that's exactly what it is. And you can't get by it. That's technology. It's in your Bible. Prove me wrong. You can tap dance around that, do the Texas two-step till the cows come home. That's technology. And we're not told how it works. I'll just give you one more. Okay, one more. So the high priest wears a breastplate. It's got the 12 stones. Each stone is the name of a tribe of Israel. High priest goes into the tent, does a request. I mean, you think the Lord's got to have a sense of humor because he's making this stuff, right? So the stones on the breastplate light up and spell out the message. That's not technology? That's not supernatural technology? Yeah. See, we've got this truncated view of the Bible. We really do. It's so truncated. It's just like, the thing's lit up and what's for lunch? I mean, that's what we all do it, Yeah. And then the Lord opens our understanding and realizing that there's technology, supernatural technology that's beyond any. It's still technology. I'll just give you one more, okay? So it's all in the book. I've got about 7 chapters written so far. If you steal this book, I'm going to come after you. Okay?
Oh, no, definitely I'm not going to. I can't wait to read it.
Somebody else out there. It's like somebody else, supernatural technology. What a great idea. So I really should do something with that and get it out or whatever. But Lord's got me working on the rungs. We're almost done. But Jesus, the pre-incarnate Jesus appears to Joshua and says, take off your shoes, Josh. This is holy ground. He's holding a sword. Okay. Now, Jesus can go like this, blink, there's my sword. I get that. And I say this with a lot of tongue in cheek in the book, and I'll do it again here. But what if that's not what happens? We know from Enoch that angels created weaponry for the early man and traded them for access to the woman, according to the book of Enoch. So what if Jesus announces in heaven, hey guys, I'm going to earth and we're going to have a contest to make my sword. And all of a sudden he said, yes, this is great. I'm going to make the sword of the Lord. And they're all ding, 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 getting this metal from God knows where and ding, 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 and making this stuff. And how about this sword, Lord? No, that's pretty good, but let's see what Gabriel has. Gabriel, sire, here's my soul. Thank you. Well, Gabriel, that's pretty good too. But what about, and all around? So I'm just saying, it's like that's how I travel when I'm reading the Bible. It's like, he could have blinked his eyes, and maybe he just blinked his eyes and he just did that. I get that, but I don't think so. That's not who I think, the way he works stuff. It's just, he's always pulling a rabbit out of his hat somewhere. He just
Definitely.
is. And he loves that interplay, that fellowship with his creation. He just loves it. I mean, he absolutely thrives on it. So why not?
Yeah.
When we get to heaven, we'll get the answer.
Absolutely. And we can definitely look at the world today. And I know in one of your books, UFO Disclosure, I think, you list probably a couple hundred or so movies and TV shows of things that are really kind of desensitizing us to the supernatural. And I find that very interesting how you did that, because that literally, it makes a lot of sense that if there is a great deception that's coming, then we are getting prepared for that. We don't even have time to talk about this. We're going to have to continue this conversation for a part 2, but
Okay.
LA, I do want to ask you one more question about your own personal walk. I've mentioned earlier to you that this is called Along the Way, and the disciples, they were walking on the road to Emmaus, and here comes Jesus in disguise. They don't realize that it's him until they sit down at the table. Jesus blesses the food and breaks the bread. Their eyes are opened, and then poof, he's gone. I'm sure there's a lot more we could talk about that. We'll save that for another time as well. But they turned to each other and said, "Weren't our hearts burning within us along the way as he was revealing the scriptures to us?" And that always leads me to this point where, LA, when you look back at your life, where do you see Jesus walking with you now that you didn't notice then, but you look back and you realize that he was there?
I had one that happened about 2-3 weeks ago, just recently. So I'm in I work out 2-3 times a week. I'm not trying to be the Hulk, but I mean, I'm 73 and I need to do this. And then I work out 2-3 times and then I run in between. So I'm, keeping things the way they should be. And, I'm getting a little ripped here, if I do say so. So I'm listening to Christian music. I forget which song it was. I have no idea. But it just touched my heart in some way. It was about Jesus and his coming. So I don't even know what it was about. Mm-hmm. And I rushed out of the room and I looked at the hill. Lord, are you there? And I look at the other hill because I live in the mountains. I'm going, Lord. And I'm saying to myself, am I flipping out here? Lord, are you there? And I look over here and it's like, I just felt like he was going to show himself. I mean, I don't know why I felt that, but it was like this burning desire to see him. And all of a sudden he said, I better be careful because I'll lose it here. Holy Spirit spoke to me. He said, I am all around you. And I just sat there, just, what do you do with that? What do you do with that? I am all around you.
Wow.
I mean, the love, Paul says it, the love that he has for us, we can't even comprehend. We can't. I just came through a chastisement in the last 48, 72 hours, which was not a lot of fun. And, I'm not going to go public with it, but, the Lord said, don't do that. Don't go there. Don't think that. Don't go there. And thank God he did. And I repented. Whoa! Drop it like a hot potato. Are you kidding me? At 73, after walking with him for 44 years. So, but that's because he loves us. And he, points out those things, disciplines us, reprimands us, but he loves us. What is it? Psalm 103, that the love of the Lord remains forever. His salvation extends to the children's children, right? I mean, but the love of the Lord remains forever. We can't comprehend it. And this is why when we finally get there, we all just do face plants, because it's just like, poop, short circuit. Thank you.
Yeah. Elliot, my follow-up to that is, if you could go back in time and visit a young LA somewhere along your timeline and give yourself some advice, what advice would you give yourself, and what's going on in your life that you would actually want to receive that advice?
I would walk in to when I gave that message at 6 or 7 or 5. I think it was more like 5 years old. My big Italian family were around the table, and they were on Sunday afternoon. And, everybody, all the aunts and uncles and everybody's there. Big Italian family around this big table, the wine's going and the pasta and the braciole. And, everything.
Oh,
yeah.
Braciole. Oh, it's so good.
Exactly. So, here we are, right, doing all this stuff. I drag my grandfather's hassock out. I take the family Bible and I place it on the hassock. That's my pulpit. I can't read. And I look at them and I go, what is the truth? What is the truth? That's my sermon. What is the truth? And the more I speak, they start laughing. They think it's hysterical. The more they laugh, I vetted this with my parents while they were alive and my Uncle George and Aunt Nancy who were there. So I have 4 witnesses. Yes, you did it. Yes, we were in hysterics. We couldn't believe what you were doing. What do I do now? What would I have told that little LA at 5 years old? hey, guess what, LA? This is a precursor of who you're going to be when the Lord finally reveals to you what your task is here. The last film in our UFO series is called What is the Truth? It's full circle.
There we
It's full
go.
circle. Can't
There
make
we
this
go.
up. Glory to the King, because that's where he's the one. He's the grand orchestrator. Well, I think we should have LA do something interesting. Gabriel, go get him. It's just like, what?
And it has definitely been a very interesting journey, and we have just scratched the surface. Oh my goodness. I know we could go a lot longer, and we need to make that happen. But I thank you so much for taking the time tonight.
Thanks, John.
To be able to do this. Could you just tell people really quick how they can get a hold of you, your website, YouTube, everything?
Yeah, website is lamarzulli.net. We were about to go lamarzulli.com. We just purchased it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we just got it after 20 years or whatever. So, but we got it. They sold it to us cheap, and we're going to start working on that. But it's lamarzulli.net. All the films you can stream, download instantly, instant gratification, including all the Roswell stuff. That's streaming.lamarzulli.net. Streaming, like a stream, .lamarzulli.net. YouTube, LA Marzulli, all social media. I do one TikTok thing a day and one update a day, all on different things. A lot of UFO stuff. We're going to do a thing on Friday on cattle mutilations, which I think you'll find interesting. One, we just got word of one, and there's pictures of this whole thing. So,
oh, goodness.
Yeah, but thanks for having me on, John. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we're going to have to do a part 2 for sure.
Let's do it.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, there we go. Whee! Thanks, John. God bless you.
Thank you.